So as we mentioned, today we will be talking about contour farming techniques. So again, my name is Zayas, agronomist for Food Producer Network um, from World Central Kitchen. And let's start defining what is contour, right? So when we are talking about contour, are imagine lines at the same elevation or height in reference to our horizontal plane or land surface. Um, Many times the reference level we take is the sea level, right? So when we are talking about the X amount of feet or meter at the sea level, right? It's one of the most common reference points that we use talking about elevation. So if you go and see or look for a topographical map of X or Y place, you will see this kind of map, right? So let's use this as an example. Here we have a mountain, right, with different slopes and shapes. So when we look this from the upper part, we will see those lines. So those are our contour lines, right? And here you have, so the ones that are at the 10 meters of elevation, 20, 30, up to 40, right? So those are the contour lines. And if you look for a map for your country and a topographical map, and you see all those curvy lines, that is in reference of contour or elevation, right? So that is in general terms. So, but today we will be talking about contour in farming. So let me stop here and explain something. This tool, it's very, very useful in terms of in many parts of the Caribbean, despite we have some places that we don't have or we can see really heavy slopes. But even if you live in an island that you think it's plain, completely plain, as from our friend in Grand Bahama or Abaco, so there's some difference in elevations in the place that the human eye is not or barely can see it, right? So no matter if you live in a place like Puerto Rico, where in the big island of Puerto Rico, we have a central part of the island that it's have very high mountains, or if you're living in a place that it's plain, it's really plain, these techniques could help you in many ways, right? So in terms of farming, the benefits of contour farming, or some of the benefits that we can find doing this technique, it's help to control and prevent soil erosion, improve water infiltration and retention. And for saying this, it is really important because without water, without the well management of water, we cannot make agriculture, right? And in the terms of our neighborhood, the Caribbean, we must improve our techniques to retain water on farm. And one of the best storage we can have is a well-managed soil capable to storage much water as possible, right? And contour farming will help us with this. Other benefit of contour farming, it's facilitate the traction in the steps planting areas, right? When we are working in the slope, which a steepness of with a heavy steepness, we know it's hard, right? So by contour farming, we can we can improve our traction and it's and make more easier for us to farming in those areas, right? It's restore and improve soil fertility. In which way? One of the first ways that contour farming help to restore that fertility of the soil, first, as in our first bullet, it's by the soil erosion, right? And most part in the places that we face heavy rain events or more extreme weather events as hurricanes, right? The one of the biggest or the main factors for loss for soil loss are the runoff water from heavy rain events, right? So by doing and implementing these techniques, we will be reducing that erosion potential of the soil. Um, Also, it helps that when we are forming in contour lines, in contour curves, because we are modifying that slope barely to zero decline. So we will be holding most of the organic matter. We are not going to be losing most of the organic matter that are decaying in soil. So it's staying in soils, and one of the keystone within the soil, uh, for its health and for the soil wellness, is have a good amount of organic matter within the soil, right? Um, as well, when we are farming with doing contour farming, other benefit it is that it allows or facilitate the use of tools and other technologies on the slopes, right? For example, when we are doing those contour lines for our crops, so or we are making small terraces for farming for our crops, so we can use their, for example, one of things that are getting really popular in Puerto Rico as well in USBI, the two-wheel tractors or the walk-behind tractor, right? So sometimes in the slope are kind of tricky for saying in some way for use it, but when we are doing contour farming, that's become more easy, or even for animal traction, right? So I like to use the term of adequate technologies, and adequate technologies is not for the last, it's not about the last generation of X or Y technology. Sometimes technology as to plow with using oxen are adequate technology. All depends of what are your characteristics and your realities, right? So using these techniques in for our farms in the mountain areas or in slopes will facilitate the heavy work we need to have to be done for farming those areas, right? So contour farming combined with other soil conservation practices will advantage at maximize the potential of the soil, right? So for saying this, I'm referring to it is not the holy grail for soil conservation, but it's one technique that will help us enormously to keep to improve our soil and maintain the soil in our farm, because soil loss of farm, it's a heavy, we sometimes we don't imagine how much soil we lost during a year for same an amount of time, but many times around the world, communities, people are are condemned to the hunger, to the poverty, because the loss of soil, right? So how contour farming looks on site. So here we have two pictures. The first one at the left upper part of your screen, it's a coffee farm in Guatemala where they done the planting strip using the contour of that slope, right? At the bottom right part, you have another farm or smaller farm where they use contour, but to set what we see here is to set contour erosion barriers in the contour of the slope, right? Between each barrier, they have the small plots for farming, right? This is one of the most common other common technique. And in this picture, you can see some ditch systems, hillside ditches to discharge water. As well, here we have another good practice that is so those barriers are made from a grass named vetiver, and the vetiver grows almost anywhere, and I I like to say that vetiver is the kind of a miracle plant, right? So because its root systems run really deeply, can grow several fits in the soil, and it will works like a kind of net to retain the soil, right? So now we will be moving in how we set and we measure and we draw our contour lines in our farm, right? So let me move from that presentation to this one. Okay, let me go back. So this presentation was made by Edwin Mas. Edwin Mas was an employee from Natural Resources Conservation Service from United States Department of Agriculture. He's retired, and I would just want to add that he apported many good work for farmers in the Caribbean region, right? For USDA, which is in Puerto Rico and United States Virgin Islands. So I will be sharing this this presentation with all of our attendees next week through email because it's for public use, right? So in this presentation, we will be seeing how to make some artisan tools or homemade tools that will help us to set our contour lines, right? But first, let's start to work to talking about how I determine where to put my erosion control barriers, right? So this is what we call contour interval of a contour map is a difference in elevation between successive contour lines. For purpose of soil control erosion, contour lines are drawn and fixed in vertical intervals, right, of 1 meter. So in soils that with more than 15% of steepness. Okay, so most of the slopes in many of the islands within the Caribbean have a steepness for more than 15%. But if you want to measure it, there's really easy techniques. So there, people as the surveyors with really technological equipment that they can make it, but as well, you don't need all of that equipment. You just can measure it using a clear hose with water inside, what we call a water level, and some like a measure tape or any other scale that are useful for it. So I will sharing with you guys a video that will show you how to measure your steepness in your farm, but as well, one tool that is really easy to use, I will show. It's using an application with a level. I use this application. It's named iLevel. I'm not promoting. You can go to the App Store or the Play Store and pick the one from your preference. But here we see that we can measure in degrees, or as well in this part. I think we have in percentage, right? So the way to use this is that you will do it with another person or using a target that you can move. So at the same level, at the same elevation, you will look through the middle of your phone where to set this. You will set this at degree zero. In this case of this app, in the red, you are running the scale 0 to 180. Blue, you're running from 180 to 0. But you can also see here when you set the 0% of incline. In this, you will look through the middle and you will set at what point of the target you are using. For example, if I'm with other person, I'm looking to the face of that person and I identify the 0 level here is when I point into the nose of that person, right? Then you that person will move to the upper part of the slope, and then you in the bottom part of the slope, you will point to that point, to the nose of the person. And when you find it, you look how many degrees or how many percentage this is indicating. And it's an easy way to measure the slope. But as I mentioned, I will share with you more information of other simple tools you can use to measure your stiffness in the on the field, right? If your stiffness are less than 15%, it is recommended to set the erosion control barriers as 0.75 meter of away, right? Of intervals of 0.75. So how you will be measuring this, right? I will show you a really easy tool to do this, right? That will help you to set that distance between your erosion control barriers. So here we have another example. This is our topographical map of the area with different contour lines of different elevations. So in the field, you can see here where they set hillside dishes for water discharge uh, at a distance of 1 meter, of an interval of 1 meter, right? Vertical intervals of 1 meter. So for steepness that are higher on higher percentage, those lines will be in a more near one to the others, right? But for steepness that are high are lower in percent, those lines will be far from each other, right? So this is a good practice. This is in a picture from Puerto Rico, from a farm in Puerto Rico. So when we are talking, just want to mention this again. So for contour, when we are doing this, it is really important that we trace our contour lines correctly, right? Because if we do it in the wrong way, we can make our farm more prone to soil erosion, right? Again, I don't know. I can speak in my experience in Puerto Rico. For example, in Puerto Rico back then in the area in the 80s, especially for coffee farms. Okay, so Puerto Rico. Let me make a more clear picture of Puerto Rico for use as an example, right? So if you look for information in Puerto Rico, you can find that it say that Puerto Rico measure from east to west 135 miles, and from north to south my bad, from east to west 100 miles, and from north to south just 35 miles. But Puerto Rico isn't a plain. It isn't plain. Puerto Rico have a really huge uh, mountain region in the middle of the island, right? So our surface area, it's really big. Most of our farms are located in that area where the slopes are in most of them are above 20% of slope of a steepness, right? So in the areas, because other beliefs, the farmers, especially the coffee farmers and citrus farmers, banana farmers, start to make their plantations to align the crop rows uh, parallel to the slope. And for this reason, nowadays we have a really huge erosion problem in most of the farms in the mountains of our island. I know that in other parts of the Caribbean as well as in Central America, that's happened too. But the right way to make it is horizontal to the slope, right? So it is really important when we are doing this to make it in the right way, as I mentioned before. So for those reasons, for this, now we will be sharing how to build, as I mentioned, some homemade tools that will allow us to to make this in the right way. Okay, so most commonly, before I talk about that picture, most commonly tools that are used for this are those one, but they are really complex and kind of expensive tools, right? This is a site hand site level. This other one is another kind of site level 2, as the one that use the surveyors. This is an inclinometer. It's kind of really useful, but it's kind of expensive too, and sometimes it's hard to find locally, right? So this one, it's used to sometimes are used to measure the height of the trees and palm trees and other things, right? But with the tools that we will be talking now, they have the same use as this one, and they are really effective. uh, and I know it because when I was on grad school, one day we done a try in the field comparing those two, both of those tools with the ones that I will be showing you within the next few minutes, right? So, but before, here is an example of erosion control barriers. It is on sandcroix, and the crop they use, it's moringa, and moringa get like a decade ago, yeah, was the the superfood of that moment, you know. So we have periodically we change from some superfood to another superfood to supplements, but moringa uh, have a lot of nutrients, and it is not just for human, but in St. Croix back decades ago was introduced as animal feed in a systems that we that you can use rotation from grass to concentrate to this kind of foliage crop uh, to supplement and provide an adequate diet for animals, right? So I would just want to mention that probably at the end of this year, or of the beginning of other one, we will be holding a webinar about this kind of system for animal feeding, right? So right here, you can see the contour barriers, right? And it is really important. One thing that I was mentioning, it is when we have rainfall, or if we are irrigation. So those barriers help, as you can see here, to maintain water and promote the infiltration of water in soil, right? So that's one of the way those system works. So, okay, today the tools we will be talking exactly about the two of the most efficient tools for to make contour to determine and mark contour lines, right? First one is this that we have here, that is named the T-stick. You know, obviously because it's form. Um, Sometimes you can find this in other literature, name it as boning rod. Okay, and the other one are the Easel or the end frame level, right? In Spanish we call them the caballete. So all of this information was taken for a manual published by Food and Agriculture Organization from the United Nations. I will be sharing uh, that manual, the link to that manual in the email that we will send next week. Okay. So before I start to talking in details of those tools, I just want to ask if we have any question yet, Nicole.
Thank you, Waris. We do have one question that was repeated. That was, can you share the name of the app again that you used?
Okay, yeah. You can just go to the App Store or Play Store and look for inclinometer. Just put this on the search, and will pop up many options. The one I have here, it's named eye level. Eye level. Okay.
Perfect.
So, but there are plenty of them. Okay, so let me show you the icon here. Oh, my bad. Let me close again.
Perfect. I just shared the name of the app on the chat.
Okay, yeah, and I don't know. So okay, it looks blurry. Forget it. Okay, thanks, Nicole. So
No
there's
problem.
not other question.
Not at this time.
Okay, nice. So okay, let's start talking about the T-stick or the boning rod. To build this, we can build this one for, I think the last one I built one, it was for less than $10. So in this case, you can use plenty of materials, such as plastic, metal, or wood, but I do prefer to make it using PVC plastic because one, it's cheaper, uh, lasts for many time, and it's not so and it is really light to work with this in the field, right? So the weight, it's really light. So how we make it? So before of all, when that we need to determine it's the steepness of our slope, right? If the steepness is 15% or higher, so the height of our tool will be 1 meter or three feet, with 3 inches for the ones who use as us that use the English system of measurements, right? Uh, so what we do with this is we cut this part, and we need to be really sure that at this point we have a meter of height, right? Then we can cut a PVC from a half inch in diameter to use as a site, and a bubble level or carpenter level, or as well it is named a bubble align level, to put in the other in one of the in the other side of this part of the T-stick, right? So you can use to attach this here, you can use tie wraps as well. You can use tape, regular tape, right? But in my recommendation, as I mentioned, when I make it this, I using PVC. I use PVC pipes um, of half inch in diameter, right? So I buy one that's the measure. It's the standard measure that you can find these in the market are from 10 feet long, and you can actually do two of them with just one pipe. Yeah, two of them, because you will use around 3 feet for this height, 2 meters from this height, and from this part to this part of this tool needs to measure 2 feet or 16 centimeters, right? So let me explain here. So because we have people that use metric systems and the one that who use English system as all, each inch it's equal to 2.54 centimeters. 1 meter equals to 39 inches or 3 feet 3 inches. 1 feet or 12 inches equal to 30 centimeters, right? So I will I will share with you as well in the email the equivalence of both measure systems. So okay, if you are doing this using PVC, you don't need to use this part, this side, because you can use this part when you are using PVC pipes as the side. In this case, what I done is I put two of those bubble levels in each side to know that I'm at level 0 when I'm using this in the field, right? Okay, so you cut this part, you cut that other part, you ensemble it all. If you're doing using PVC, let me stop to share my screen for a second. So to connect the three parts, you will use that PVC part that we call a T piece, right? So you connect the shorter two pieces of PVC pipe in each of the of parts, and the longest one you connect here, and you just make sure that at this point from the floor to that point, the measure it's 1 meter in height. Okay, so at each of the side of the T, you place that other part, the bubble level, right? And then you're ready to use it in field. Okay, so let me reshare my screen again. And now we will we can see now we will see how we gonna use this on field, right? So this is another image. One other I just forget that another useful part that you can add is that rest food. And this rest food, you can use PVC as well, or metal, or something that you can reuse, just to use it, because that will help you to maintain more stable at in level when you are on this working with this in the field, right? So here is a sketch. As I mentioned, if we are using just PVC, you just replace the side for another carpenter bubble level, and you use this as this entire part as a side, right? Why we need a side? So let's see this next illustration here. Okay, so let's say that we are working in this. This is our form. This is our slope. So we start to measure the intervals of our erosion control barriers from 1 meter apart each other. We need to start by the top part of our hill, right? So we identify that first point. We can mark that point using those kind of flags that you can buy in a local hardware, or as well anything that it's useful for you. Sometimes you can use wood sticks, or some people use some rocks of a good size, just to measure that first point. Then you start to walk down the slope, and in some intervals you just stop and place your stick and look to the side. And when you identified the bottom part of your point of reference, and the bubble levels are at level 0 when the bubble is in the middle, right? It's what's indicate that is a level 0. Looking through your side, that will identify you that you are in interval of 1 meter. Okay, so it's easy. So you mark, let's say that is our first point, right, of reference. That's the upper part of our slope, or not the upper part of our slope. It is the point that we want to start our erosion barriers, or our crop lines, right? So we set that point there because it's the one the point of reference in the area that we want to start to measure to place our erosion control barriers. You start to work, you stop here and look through the side, and you say, oh, okay, no, I saw the point at level 0 here, so I know that I need to keep walking down the slope. And then I stop here, I look through the side at level 0 in the bubbles, in the bubble levels here, and I see through the side the bottom part of this point. So now you are sure that you are at the right distance of interval of 1 meter to place your contour barrier. In the other hand, if your slope is less than 15%, you know your disc or your rotting or your boning rod, the height will be 0.75 meter, not 3 meters, right? So it's really used. You need, with 1 or 2 practice, you will learn how to use it, and it is really helpful, right? And if you take and you remove all that soil here, so, and you measure the height from here to here in a vertical plane, it will be 1 meter. So that's all the science after this, right? So remember, if your slope have a higher steepness, those points will be closer. If your steepness is less, so those points will be far from each other. Okay. Any question about the T-stick?
Not at this time, but we just want to give everyone a reminder that if you have any questions, to please ask them at the Q&A. We're also reviewing the chat, so if you have any questions, you can also drop them there if it's easier.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Okay, so let's go now to talk about the Easel or the end figure instrument, right? Okay, so the first one I show you, it's just to place your contour, your erosion control barriers. So what we can use for those barriers, we can use make living barriers using shrubs, trees, or other plants as the vetiver, as I show you. You can place there the hillside dishes for discharge of water as well. You can put some people in some places use rocks as erosion control barriers. Other do infiltration strips. Infiltration strips are they are look alike of ditches, just to help to maintain water there. You can use a plenty of plants or other materials to make those erosion control barriers. So once you have the right distance to place them, you need to level them at 0 degrees of inclination, right, in a horizontal plane. For this, we will be using, or I recommend to use the Easel or the end figure instrument as the one we have here. Some of you already know another one of the most popular handmade tools for this are the A figure or the A frame, as the one that we can see here. But first time I learned of this, that was the first tool I know it and I use for a while. But when I'm talking in my personal experience, right? So, and my preference. But then when I met this, I completely switched to use this one, because for me it's easier to use it. And I will talk a little more in a few minutes why I prefer this. So this guy here could be used not just to place the contour lines for erosion control barrier, but as well if we are making a planting X or Y crop, like let's say as I mentioned, like coffee or citrus, as oranges or limes or any kind of fruits in a slope, as happened much in Puerto Rico and other parts of the Caribbean. So those crop lines, you can use this, you can place those crop lines in contour at level 0 using this guide too. Okay, so what we need to build it, we can use wood, lumber, right? Or plastic, PVC. In my case, again, I prefer to use PVC because it's lighter, last for really long. Okay, so what you can use, if you prefer to make it using PVC as me, you can use PVC pipes for 1.5 inches of diameters of 2 inches. I prefer to use it in 1.5 diameter, because when I make mine ones, I do using PVC schedule 40, that it's kind of thicker. It's kind a little bit more expensive, but you, for less than 20 bucks, you can build one of these, right? So that's the reason I use 1.5 in inches of diameters to make it more lighter, because if you are using more dense PVC and you build it in 2 inches, then it's kind of more heavy. And at the beginning, you say, that is not heavy, but after a few hours using it, you will feel it, believe me. Anyway, so you will use PVC pipes and those elbows. In this example, they are using regular elbows, but in my case, I do prefer to use the 90 elbows. Those ones that the angle of the curve, it's 90 degrees, and you can find it in the hardware store as 90 degrees elbow or 90s. It's the way they name it, right? So I use it because it's more for me, it's more accurate in terms of measures, right? When we are talking about the length of the instrument. Okay, let me reshare the screen again. Okay, so this tool have three parts, or right, have two legs and the bridge. The bridge is the horizontal part of the tool, as you see here, and how long the bridge have to be, that's all depend on on the purpose you're using it, right? The example that we will be looking here in a few moments used a bridge of 100 inches or 2.5 meters, but it is really big. Okay, so what I do, it's, if I'm using this just to mark in the field the contour lines, not for any purpose, not for general purposes. In my case, because of my physical capabilities, I use it. For me, the most comfortable one to use is doing this bridge for long of 5 feet long. That is like around 0.90 meters, right? A little less, I think. Five in a length of 5 feet, because that's allowed me to handle it in the best way on field. But you can, if you are smaller, you can make one from 4 feet in length. Okay, that will not affect the performance of the accuracy of this, right? Okay, but what is really important, it is to place the bubble level in the right in the middle of the bridge. For example, if you are using a bridge from 60 inches of length, that center of the bubble level needs to be in the length of 30 inches. Okay, so that is really important, because if you don't place this right in the center, so this tool will not works. That will not identify you the 0 degree level, right? So that is the most important. Legs, how long they needs to be, again, that depends of how it's more suitable for you, right? In my case, I prefer to use it 36 inches or 0.91, I think, 0.91 meter in length. Okay, in height, my bad, in height, right? So how you done? So you just make sure that you cut the pieces of PVC or wood, the right length in both sides, and the upper part of your bridge from the floor to here are 36 inches in length, right? That's all. I and it's really easy to build it, right? How I use it, I say, okay, let me start to mark my contour line at this point, okay? So I place that first leg in the point A, okay? So then I start to move from over or to up or down the other leg until I put in a point where the bubble is placed in the center. That is indicating me that I'm at level 0, right? Then I move to that point where I have the other leg, and I place the leg, let's say the leg A in that point, and then I do the same thing, and I keep walking along, identifying the 0 level. That's easy, right? This is a level for the field, as the one you use for the carpenter use, and etc. Right. So that's a level for the field. That's all the there's no secret, there is no other anything, that is really easy to use it, right? So when I'm talking about the length of the bridge, if you are using for a specific purpose, let me say I have a farm, uh, and I want to plant on the slope of that farm for using for lime trees, okay? and and the space between each lime tree should be, let's say, 5 feet in the crop line, right? So I need to place each tree 5 feet apart each other. To make it to make this at contour, following a contour line, what I do it is that I set or I make a level that the length of the bridge is 5 feet. And then in the field, I start to measure and mark the exactly point where the hole for that to plant that tree should be. Okay, so that's another way to use this tool. Okay, I will show you a picture of of a of a coffee farm that was done in this way. Okay, the crop strips at contour at level, right? Any question about how to build it, or any question about that tool before I move to explain another way that you can use that tool?
No questions, just a comment that the tool can be used to contour and as a separator.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
That's the term for I'm just explaining in the other way to use that tool, right? Okay. Now, other use that we can employ this tool, it's to mark the ditches to water discharge, right? So it is really important. Another method or tool that we can employ in our farm in slopes to prevent soil erosion, it's making a ditches system, right? So ditches, most time you want your ditches to have some incline to help the water to run out of the field, right? So let's say I need to make my dishes with a 3% of a slope, right? Of inclination. How I make it with this? So in this case, you will use a shorter leg, okay? How I calculate this? Let's say, let's use this example here. If I want to have 3% of a stiffness, if my bridge is 100 inches long, one leg needs to be 33 inches tall, and the other one is very thick, okay? Because the 3% of 100, it's 3, okay? But if you are using a bridge for in the length of 72 inches or 6 feet, just multiply 72 by 0.03, and the result of this, that number, it's the amount of length that you need to cut or make shorter that leg. For example, if it was for 72 inches, it was around the 3% of 72, it's, I don't know, it's around 1 point something or 2 point something. So let's say it was 2 for an example. I say, if I remember well, it's 1.6 something. So it was 1.6, and one of your legs are 36, your other leg will be 34.4 of in length, in height, right? So now you have this steepness in your bridge, and then you can mark this using all the time the leg that should need to be in front in the slope will be the shorter one, right? You will be measure this in this way with the shorter one in front, and then when you are moving this, when the bubble in your level is at the center, you find that you are marking all those points along the line at 3% of a steepness. So that's another way to use it. Let me stop here and say that there's other method to build the dishes and that system in your farm. If you want to know more information about how I design the right dishes in farm, I will share my email at the end of the presentation, and I can send you more information on how to build effective dishes systems. I just want to add, and I know we with us today, it's Josue Roman from Agropec in Puerto Rico, one of our grantees who formerly works for NRCS from the USDA. For the people in Puerto Rico and USBI, that service of identify the contour lines, design the hillside dishes and the dishes, general dishes systems in farm, the USDA offered that service for free to the farmers. So if you are in USBI or in Puerto Rico, look for your regional office of NRCS and ask about that service, right? Okay. So any other question about this, about how to use it for mark
So
the
we
dishes?
do have two questions. One is, would you need to check the tools to make sure they remain in place? If yes, how often should you check?
Okay, well, let me explain this part. When you are building this at home, one of the things that you need to make to secure that it is really sharp are the bottom part of the legs, right? The cut needs to be really sharp at level 0, so it will take you a few minutes, but using a level, make sure that those bottom of the legs are at zero level, right? And place it in a floor that you know are at level, just to secure, to calibrate that the tool is calibrated, right? But the other thing that you need to make sure is that every time that you gonna use it, just make sure that the level is in the middle of the bridge, in the right middle of the bridge. That's all that you need to do.
We have one more question, and it's from Diane Banner, and she asks, how about the A-frame? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Do you want her to be more specific, or is that okay?
Okay, I will talk about the A-frame in the next slide. Yeah, I'm not saying one is best than another, but I do prefer the Eisel. Okay, nice. So I will share that presentation with you with all of you. If you have further questions with this, feel free to contact me through email. I will share my email at the end of the presentation. Okay, so okay, let's talk about the A-frame. The A-frame is this one here. I will not enter so in many details of this tool. This one, it was built really, you know, in a really simple way using the materials that you can find in the farm, right? But as well, you can build this one using lumber or using PVC tools, screw, and make it in the more technological way to say in some way, right? So what you will do, it's if you're gonna build this one, you will need two pieces of the same length. In this case, it is recommended about 6 feet. Another one, the bridge of this one, this part is named the bridge 2, about 3 feet. That's an standard measure that most people use, but you can build it in different size. Again, all will depend of how it's more useful for you and what works better for you. Okay, but you can build it shorter, taller, but just make sure that those pieces have the same length, and this one have an adequate the adequate length. You know, you can use, for example, if you build this for instead to use 6 feet pieces, you use 8 feet. But then you need to make sure to use a bridge for for the half of the length of those pieces, right? If this is 6, the bridge will be 3. If this will be 8, that will be 4. Or if you use smaller one for 5, let's say 5 feet, so the bridge needs to be 2.5 feet long. Okay, so that's the relation between each piece. Okay, then you use the plumb line. This is this line that will be your level, right? But one thing that I learned year after I saw this for the first time, it is that many people replace this for a bubble level too. And when you replace this for a bubble level, it is more easier to use it, because one of the factors that I don't really like this one, it is because of the plumb. Because when you are on the field and you want to work a little faster using this, so take kind of longer, right? But when you replace this with a bubble level in the middle of this at level 0, as I mentioned before, for me it's comparable in terms of time that use the Easel, right? This one, the end frame. So those are the difference between one another, but both have the same purposes. It's just matter of preference of the people. In my case, I prefer this one, as I mentioned many times. Okay, so there's any question about the A-frame?
Not so far.
Okay, so last thing I want to show, but just to show, because I will send some information, is that okay, okay, maybe before this, let me show this those pictures here, right? So the illustration in the middle are a system, a farm in a mountainous slope, where contour farming was implemented with the dishes, with erosion control barriers and everything. In the upper part, we have the forest component in the field, and this is ideally how our farms will look when we are when we employ this technique. Okay, so at the upper part, left upper part, this is a farm in Puerto Rico where they done small terraces for farming, but using erosion control barrier, using a vetiver, the grass I mentioned, right? I will share the name through the email, as well with the scientific name, because depending of the region, its name, the plant could, the name could change as happened with many other things, right? Uh, right here are what I was mentioning. It was a coffee farm in Puerto Rico, where they were using those kind of tool just to place the crop lines, right? You can see here, so those small coffee trees. And other important thing that I want to point here is it is that when we are doing this kind of planting in the slope, it's really important to make this half moon shape terraces in the soil, right? Because right here we are what we are doing here, it is that we are changing to a total zero level in the slope, right? They are named those one as individual terraces. It was a really common practice in Puerto Rico decades ago, and some of older you know, now we have another generation of farmers, of young farmers that are more consciousness about are more conscious about the importance of the soil health, and they are reintroducing this practice in Puerto Rico. But this practice was was used in Puerto Rico widely decades ago for many farmers, right? So are the individual terraces or these half moon shaped terraces. So this is a really nice picture. Other thing that I want to point here, it is that first barrier for soil erosion control, it's a cover soil, okay? Bare soils promotes erosion, okay? So another thing, it is that we never needs to have our farm soil, no matter if it's a plain or it is a 90% for you know, I'm just kidding, but it is a heavy slope and more and not so steepness, the steepness is not so so heavily, or it is a plain, we never have our soil bare soil, right? We always want this soil covered, okay? So there's many plants that we use as a cover crop, but sometimes if you are not using that technique, so just leave the spontaneous vegetation, the regional vegetation, the widths, for example, trim it, control it, but never eradicate it completely, okay? So let's keep our soil covered, okay? So in the other right pictures, the other two, the one in the top, so you can see some terraces with the contour at contour in farming, that is in a farm in Puerto Rico too, and the other one, this is not Puerto Rico. I actually don't know where is it, but if you look, there are many contour crop strips in that area. So if you want to look more examples, are really nice ones, you need to look at examples in the Pacific. Most of the Pacific places, islands, has been employing this for decades or maybe centuries, as well in China or other country that they have they use broadly that techniques for centuries, right? The last thing I want to show, it's that when I was talking about how you can measure your steepness in farm, was using the water level, right? And this is how it looks, okay? But I will share with you guys how to use this in field, okay, in the field, okay. And before I move to the closing part of this webinar, I just want to mention, do not never underestimate those kind of homemade or artisanal tools, because it is believed for the experts that things like the pyramids, Machu Picchu, or many other Asian structure that nowadays uh, keeps that's keep today and nowadays that has been resisting all the past of the time, was made using tools like these ones. Okay, so those tools are not new, so that's probably ancestral knowledge that has been passing through generations. Okay, so do not underestimate those things for more simple that they look. Okay, so just make sure that you are building yours in the right way, and you can and that's all. So just build in the right way and know how to use it. And if you have further doubts about it, feel free to email me. Okay, or I can contact, maybe depending of where you are, maybe I know other people that can bring your assistant with it. Okay. Okay, so let's see now. So we will be just seeing some pictures of how contour farming looks in farm. Okay. For example, here when I was talking, because I include that picture here for persons or people that are attending our webinar who lives in more plain areas, right? We're like our friends in the Bahamas, right? So no matter sometimes you barely see the steepness in the field, but it has a steepness, right? So this is how contour farming look in more in more plains or near to plains areas, right? As well here, those are uh, the contour lines combined with a dish system to discharge water in from out of the field, right? So now I want to introduce our good friends from El Josco Bravo. El Josco Bravo is an agroecological farm and project in Toa Alta, Puerto Rico. So they are one of our first grantees, and the project was found back then in 2014 by this guy. His name is Ian, and all of them are starts in agriculture. They are good farmers, and they build been working in this project now for many years, and it is really successful, right? So that farm promotes the agroecological techniques of farming, right? So one of things that it is standard in the farm, it's to make all the to place the contour in all crop fields. Okay, so let's see how they looks. Okay, so right here we can see a field where it is the crop was placed at contour, and now you can see the contour lines all along here. Okay, so you can see it from one part to the other part, how the contour lines sit. But if you look in detail of this picture, the elevation it's changing, right? And you will find and you can see it, how contour lines are are changing depending on the elevation, on how and the steepness along that slope. Okay, so you can see here too, this is a field of pineapples, and you can see how goes those lines. But when we are going further to the bottom of that slope, you can see those lines change will be changing in form, right? So those one you can see more you can see the curve here, but those one you can barely see the curve, right? how it looks from an overview. So you can see here, this is another field on that farm, and you can see how the curves, the contour lines change depending of the steepness in the slope. Sometimes, as you see here, those lines will intercept one with others, and all other thing that could happen, it is that many of the lines are not in the same in the length, right? In this uh, in this case, or when we have the lines are close one to another and you cannot place your crop, so those places or those areas you can use for what we call ecological compensation areas. So that is not suitable for the crop because it is not have the right area to planting, but you can use it to place some flowers for the pollinators, or that are beneficial to our crops. Okay, so because some people ask me, it is a common question when they saw the contour lines on the field, right? uh, in this picture, you can see the a broader area from the farm with different steepness in the landscape, right? And you can see how the contour lines change, right? So right here we have ones that go to the inner part of the slope. Those one are more to the prone to the front of the slope. And so right here you can see how contour farming looks. Okay. And it is a good example because we have in this area, we have a lot of different steepness and topographical forms, right? Last thing I want to point in this picture, it is that if you see all the roads and the complete soil that it is not in cropping system, it's covered by the grass, right? They are not bare soil here, okay? Other thing that I just want to show, it is those black areas that you can see in the pictures. So those are named, this wool, it's named hay tarps, hay tarps, okay? So it is used after you plow the soil. They place those things in on the soil and left there for around 2 weeks, and that will help to decrease the inventory of weeds. Okay, that will help to maintain weeds control because that technique it's named solarization. And when we are solarizing our soil, the temperature that it is produced there will kill a good part of the weeds, of the seeds of the weeds that are in soil, and that will help us to control weeds, right? Because weed control it's one of the most heavy things on farm, and sadly most people use chemical techniques using glyphosate and other herbicides that are really harmful for the soil, for the water, and at the end of the all the chain to the humans, right? So anyway, I just want to mention it because right here you can see in place many techniques of soil conservation, right?